If you wish to return, O Israel, says the Lord, return to me. If you put your detestable things out of my sight and do not stray, then you can swear as the Lord lives, in truth, in judgment, and in justice. Then shall the nations use his name in blessing and glory in him. So that's Jeremiah chapter 4, 1 through and 2. And of course, over the course of the month since the last episode, I was only able to get through that many chapters of Jeremiah because, as you know, just like in Isaiah, Jeremiah is pretty big, pretty long. There's a lot of struggle and hurt and warring and detestable hatred and anger of Jeremiah. And from all of that, we learn a lot of historical and very incredible and very worthy wisdom from Jeremiah and everyone that he comes across and everyone who ends up just hating him. And it wouldn't be the first time I had read Jeremiah, but reading through it, you come back to stuff and you forget a lot of it. Like in the very, very beginning of the first chapter, where God tells him that he has a great plan for him, that he's called him to go wherever and to speak to whomever God has asked him to speak to, because God says that he has great plans for all of us, that he has plans to prosper us and bring us into incredible feats and to make us victorious as well. So, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, to give you great hope and great future. The Lord basically is asking us not just to learn the history of the time in which Jeremiah lived, but he's asking us, as we read on and on, like he asks us in Isaiah, to understand how pain works and what pain can do, and how wickedness works and what wickedness can do, and what and why we need forgiveness, and what and why we needed Jesus to come as he did and take on the struggle of our sin and our stain and our horrible lifestyles and the things that we assume, like in Jeremiah in these first few chapters. God explains to Jeremiah that he has seen the stain of sin from the people, including Jeremiah himself as a prophet. And those wise questions God poses to Jeremiah. What do you see? What do you see? Of course, the answer Jeremiah answers back as to what he sees. Like he sees the branches of the tree, and God says, yes, that's the reason why I'm going to make you as go out and far and spread as much wisdom as far and as wide as the branches of this tree. And explaining how wars will start from the north and things like that. God doesn't just use facts, he uses symbols, he uses everything. That's why when we're struggling, we don't realize what God is doing with that struggle. For instance, just recently, my past struggle has been with my sight heavily, as you all know. If I sit at a computer too long and while I'm working, or at why I'm a day late, and obviously doing this webcast is sometimes computers just don't work, and sometimes phones don't work, as you know. But there are some real big struggles that come from that sometimes. We become reliant on our devices, and we start to think more ahead of ourselves in assuming that we don't need the Lord to do these normal things that we consider to be normal, like communicating with each other and writing letters. I mean, sometimes it helps to use our hands and put pen to paper, and to alleviate that stress of just using a plain telephone, or just going for a walk and going out and talking to somebody. He's telling us something. Sometimes we forget to communicate with people. Sometimes we don't think that we need to. And God really just spends a lot of time, moment by moment in the Bible, as well as moment by moment in our lives, telling us we think we don't need him. We think we don't need to do those simple things. But in fact, we do. And just getting over hatred and burden and anger and frustration would help a lot, to do these simple things that we don't think are simple anymore. And it would save us a lot of gray hair and a lot of tears and a lot of brokenheartedness, to just pick up and do some of this stuff. And I wanted to go ahead and plug volunteering again, because there's something that we definitely learned from Jeremiah. He was very willing to do what he was doing after all of the hardship and the hurt and the hell and the brimstone on earth that had thrown at him. He basically, in stepping up to the challenges that God was presenting to him, he pretty much, he went for it. And he did what he had to do. He did what he had to do to correct himself before the Lord, the Almighty. Plugging all kinds of volunteerism, since I've been having these different struggles, and as you know, the person stalking me, I'm sure, watches this channel quite a bit, and I wouldn't put it past him. But probably one of those things that, so I volunteer with police. I volunteer with sometimes fire and community, and I just get to know and go out and get to know people, different community events. There are always going to be community events in your area, especially now that fall is heading in, and the days are growing shorter again, no matter where it is, no matter where you live. So on the East Coast, I'm sure that you have a ton of festivals coming up, no matter where. Your smaller communities especially. I know that you guys got some fairs going on already right now. I wanted to go ahead and continue to plug those. Get to know when your county fair is coming up, and go out and just volunteer one weekend. And if you haven't already, if you are finally now in a church, your churches are going to be having festivals as well, art festivals. It's pretty big, no matter where you are, especially out in the Midwest, heavily in places all over California. And if you are in those areas, reach out to your local county groups, your rehabilitation groups especially. And if that's not your game, if that's not your jam, pick up some of the energy and the good vibe from being part of things that helped you. Let's say you were a suicide person, and you are still living. Congratulations, and God bless you. You have done something that not a lot of people, including me, could do, which was get past a struggle that probably would have taken over. And get involved in suicide hotline, your rehab centers, Al-Anon, Alateen, and wanted to plug some radio stations. Some of my favorites, K-Love. You can look up klove.com, KLOVE.com, and Air1, AIR1, the number 1, that is. Look up your local coffee houses. I'm sure that in many of your areas, you've got at least one Christian coffee house in those areas. And even if you don't want to, let's say you want to pick up some extra cash, go to a show, go to a concert, and support your local Christian joints. I'm sure that they would really appreciate it. I wanted to go ahead and continue plugging away, but I wanted to also leave you with this before we continue, obviously, divulging in Jeremiah as time goes on, and something I learned when I was doing Mary Kay. Mary Kay Ash's motto and line for her products for people getting into becoming consultants was a plan for their life. 1, God comes first. 2, family comes after that. And for you married couples, your spouse comes before your children. 3, everyone else and everything else, work, school, whatever it is, comes. Of course, you come last. And something to just think about. Okay? Talk to you soon.